And we are live. I see us on Facebook now. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to the 936. We're talking about the bond election coming up, Proposition A and Proposition B. We've got Coach Carl Abseck with us. He is the head football coach and athletic director at Lufkin ISD. And then we also have Shawn Clynch, who is spent time at WKTR or not WKTR, KTR. I'm from the
wrong side of the Mississippi River.
I'm from the other side, so I still get the W in there. But at KTRE and then eventually KVUE, and now he has stories inside the man cave, so he's got deep ties to East Texas as well. And Shawn, I'll let you go ahead and get us started here and talk a little bit about what we want to do here and what we're talking about here tonight. So.
Well, first off, I was very flattered that you guys and the platform and Tom reached out to us to talk about something that's very sensitive and important to your viewers, listeners. And I think it was 4 years ago, the same thing occurred here in Austin. I know we're a major, ninth largest city in the country, but as far as the inner city school district, we're having the same problems that most school districts are facing. So I have mentored inner city kids, followed high school athletics. I was a high school athlete myself, in which not so much focused on the playing part of what it did for me, but having the amount of coaches. It helped me in education and the facilities. All of that matters so much. And before I give the baton to Coach Abseck, who that's how our relationship started. It's funny how this world is. We are literally separated by 3 to 6 degrees. Coach Abseck and I got to know each other when he was the defensive coordinator of those state championship teams at Cedar Park. And then he became head coach when I was at KVU here in Austin, the ABC affiliate. That's how we got to know each other, and I'll just go ahead and say it because this is clean. No, I'm just kidding. But we got to know each other really well, had some really deep conversations behind closed doors about the very thing that we're talking about. This is not strictly an issue for Lufkin. It's about painting the picture, how it benefits everybody. But I was thinking, I'm a big quote guy because I love inspirational speakers. Pat Riley, the former great Lakers head coach, and a lot of people know this quote, but he said there are only two options regarding commitment, and you're either in or you're out. There is no such thing as life is in between. And I know there are two props for the constituents, the voters of Lufkin, and is it strictly Lufkin or Angelina County?
Just Lufkin. Lufkin ISD.
Because I care about that city and the East Texas area deeply. I was just there this past weekend, and I invest my time. I've cultivated a lot of relationships, and I may not have a kid in a public school or any school for that matter right now, but I care about education. I care about high school athletics, and I care about return on investment for taxpayers. And I think that's a good point to where I can hand off to Coach Abseck because he has a great perspective. He's seen it in multiple school districts, and he has a great perspective on it all.
And I think the important thing about having Coach Abseck here is, he's on both sides of the issue. He's the athletic director. He understands the importance of the football stadium and the athletic stadium in that part, but he's also an educator. So he's on the other side as well. And so I think he offers a unique perspective because he's on both sides of the A and the B.
Well, I think the biggest deal to kind of take a piggyback off of your quote is that I don't think that we as a society and as a community ever lose when we invest in our kids. That is the gift that is going to continue to give. It's going to be the ones that supports us and takes care of us moving forward. And so the more we can pour into them, the more we can change and help them in their development, then it's a win for all of us, and I think that's the piece that sometimes people lose focus on is that, everybody's not going to be somebody who uses the stadium, just like not everybody's ever going to be somebody that uses the ag barn or who's going to be involved in one of the CTE programs. But it's going to cover a huge spectrum of our students and our population. Not everybody's going to be in band. I mean, but it matters to a large number of people in each one of those categories. And as a whole, we're trying to benefit and improve and grow all those kids that show up at Lufkin High School. And so to me, that's where this bond is pivotal, is that we're creating potentially with this bond an improved education for our kids of Lufkin, which will continue to help this community and this town grow and thrive moving forward for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Abe Martin's been there for 53 years. That stadium is served its time. It's done a great job. It's provided a venue for thousands of kids to play, and a lot of them go on to play at much bigger venues. But the school itself is over 28 years old without really any major additions or improvements, and technology and times change over a course of time, and it's up to us to update and improve the circumstances that our kids are going to go and learn from.
And were you on the board that met and talked about this, Coach? Were you part of that?
I was involved with the pre-bond design work that we did on the stadium. But as far as the school piece, I wasn't on the community council, but I went to all the meetings to listen to the questions and to hear the concerns or the thoughts of the people who were representing the community. And I think that's where we as a school district did a really good job of taking the input from the community. The bonds that were pushed forward were from the community group that was formed. And it's just like anything else. They were representative of all parts of the city, to really target the things that we as a community felt were the most important things to focus our attention on at this moment.
I talked to Tara Watson over at the chamber, who, by the way, is the sponsor of this program. We want to thank the chamber, the Lufkin Angelina County Chamber, for sponsoring this for us tonight. But one of the things she told me, she said, when Longview, for instance, hosts a 2-day band contest, what the city ends up getting out of that is about $1.2 million. When you talk about all the people coming in, staying for 2 days, staying at the hotels, eating at the restaurants, gassing up their cars, doing all the things that you do while you're on the road. And so those things aren't possible at Abe Martin as it stands now, right?
No, we are not. We cannot host those in our current condition with our stadium because of the accessibility and the situation that we're in. And so, funny enough, I actually met with Mr. Beavers today, who's the fine arts director, because we work out time frames where they do different things and practices at the stadium, because, it's not a football stadium. It is a sports venue for Lufkin.
Right.
And, so, we met today to talk about this upcoming season and, days in which they can get out on the turf and practice. And when we work together to share that space. But that was a question that I asked him. I said, with this, does that give us an opportunity to compete, to host that kind of event? He said, absolutely. And I think that's one of the deals. There's no guarantees on anything, but I feel like with what we would provide, that for our community, it could be a huge benefit, because, I don't know of any of our businesses that would turn down $1.2 million worth of weekend service and business, and that has a carryover effect to everybody around them.
I think
it's big.
I think one thing that, and Coach Abseck can really relate to what I'm about to say, and we talked to when we met last week, and we were talking about this, just trying to get on the same page. If you look around the great state of Texas, this is what we're discussing has been or was an issue at the time in several communities. But what it turned into, because these same types of props were voted in, elected. They were by the majority of the voters. Let's take Stephenville. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is the same people who created, redesigned, reimagined for the renovation and the new facility in Stephenville. This is going to be similar. I bring that stadium up. I bring what was going on in the DFW suburbs to the northeast, what Frisco, they have the Star. There are other venues that I think that a lot of people, when they present things like this, they don't paint the picture fully. I think the people in Lufkin, the thing that Lufkin has is a tremendous amount of quality leadership. People who are not trying to shove new taxes, new tax money, albeit probably 2 or 3 cups of coffee worth per month is what it would be out of pocket.
Right.
But where I'm getting with this is this new stadium, they have event spaces that you could have board meetings in, small meetings. It could be for graduation. I mean, there's so many renewable spaces that you could recycle and create revenue, not only for Lufkin ISD, but obviously the schools for education. But you're bringing tourist money into the city. And right now, it's just you can't do that because of the ADA compliancy is not met. And who, other than people like me who try to get their steps in every day, but not everybody wants to get their steps in when they're in a suit or business attire, or let's say our elderly population. It's hard the way Abe Martin is structured right now. But there are so many spaces, and Coach, you could correct me on this, but I feel like if it's designed like the one in Stephenville, there are spaces that you could, what's the term I'm looking at? You for a price, you have a rate, a banquet or a small banquet, small meetings, and that's what these new stadiums offer. Am I off base on this one?
No, I mean they actually included that particular space in their when they designed theirs. Ours has the ability to have that. We did not include it on the original because, again, we were trying to be more, cognizant of our local population, right, and the taxes that we were going to impose with this potential bond. And so, there were certain things that we didn't do because we were trying to keep the costs at a minimal. Every community and every tax base is different, and so what you propose is more palatable in different places. And so we were trying to be really cognizant of our community and the needs that we have, not to go overboard, but also not to undersell it so that in 5 years you're like, man, I wish we'd have done this or that. I think it was a thoughtful process to be good stewards with the taxpayers' money, but also to provide the venue that we need to be able to attract, a state band competition or regional band competition, regional track meets. And also, you have playoff soccer games, playoff football games. I mean, we hosted, 3 series of softballs games last week at our softball complex. We have we have 2 baseball series this week. We have 2 softball series this week. So, we have shown and seen that the facilities that we've created in the basketball, volleyball, baseball, and softball through our last bond is got an opportunity to create revenue for not only the district through hosting those games, but also for our community, because when people drive and travel, they're going to eat, they're going to fill up on gas, they're going to potentially stay the night. So it gives and benefits multiple groups within the community when we have those events here. And so this football, / sports venue would not be any different, because it opens up, the potential for 4 different events that we could host that would bring in revenue throughout, November to December, and then into the spring with track meets and soccer games. And, we hosted 2 football games this past year, and we hosted 1 soccer playoff game this past year. And so, even with the reality of what we're looking at right now, it still gets games because we're in a great spot in between the Metroplex and Houston on the east side. And, with an improved facility, it's only going to increase the demand for it.
And there's going to be some migration of some of your resources into other. I think you said when we talked the other day, the turf that's in A. Martin now is going to go over to the middle school and be used there, and which is going to offset. I mean, I don't know how much it costs to put turf down on a football field, but I guarantee it's not cheap. And that's going to be done at a fraction of the cost for what you would have to go do normally if you just had to start from scratch.
You're looking at from scratch, putting a stadium in at a middle school size field is about 1.1 million. So, once you've turfed the stadium and you've prepared the substructure for everything, when you put new turf down, it's about half of the cost to do it on the second go around. We also, like I said, we're going to put a practice track over there. Because we would potentially need, with the passing of this bond, we're going to need a track for 2 years while this stadium's being constructed. And so, we're benefiting our middle school young athletes, our community, because it opens up another venue that can be used potentially by our younger, our youth league stuff. And so we're improving multiple facilities through this bond. That will benefit our kids throughout our school district from the 6th grade all the way up through the 12th grade, not to mention the youth sports, and so it's got a lot of benefit to it. And so aside from, the stadium, which again, like I said, we also host a Special Olympics there. We host multiple youth, field day events. We host the Honor America through our band, where they honor our veterans. We host graduation, which is a huge event, every year. And, we've actually had people who have difficulty attending their grandkids' graduation because of their inability to get around the stadium. That's not the general rule, but that's a fact that we face with the current situation that we're in.
So that's a lot about Prop B, and we're going to get back to Prop B, but we move over to Prop A. And, one of the things that when we toured, I toured the facility or the school and the stadium, I guess it was back in March when you had those, I think there was a couple of Mondays, and I came in on one of those. They started talking about the CTE program, the Career and Technical Education program. And, she said something about welding and passing. And I said, wait a minute. These kids graduate with their welding certificate. They're ready to go to work. And they said, yeah, that. And, HVAC, you got health sciences, robotics, which that program I know is doing really well. They've won state championships and been doing a lot recently. There's construction trades, automotive and diesel, IT, cybersecurity, industrial certifications of all sorts that we're sending these kids out. And not everybody's doing a 4-year college. That route was, I think we talked about it when we all got together earlier last week, was, that was the thing when we were coming up. You went to college, and I know coming up, there were kids that went to trade school, and I was in the college prep side. Those kids that went to trade school could probably buy most of us out of the quarters on their bedside table now, because they learned a trade and they started working immediately while we were off goofing off in college and trying to figure out what we were going to do. So I think that's an important thing, not only for the students, but as far as beyond that, the community as well, that you've got trained, ready to go to work employees that are right here in Lufkin. They don't have to leave, and you can put them to work right here in town immediately after graduation.
That's a part. I know Coach Abseck, he's around this 24/7, or at least 20 hours. But I'm in the business development side space and in corporate America now, but I'm also still very much connected to education and high school athletics and college athletics, just for the connections I have. And I had this conversation last week. I told them what we were doing, and I said, and I'll keep the person anonymous, but let's just say they were once a superintendent here in the Austin area. And I also contacted Matt Knight, Joe Morales, just to get all the opinions and put them all in one big pot.
Joe Morales had an opinion?
Yeah. And because it's, I wanted everybody to tell me, because I'm not there, but I care. I really do. There's still passion, and there always will be, but it's not anything different than it was here 4 years ago. So what this individual told me, he said, and this is combining with what Matt and I told me and what Joe told me. Essentially, if this does not pass either one of them, and we're talking about infrastructure, this is the part where I think people don't see. Because as I'm a citizen who votes. I have to study before I go vote, because first of all, I don't know exactly what I'm voting for or against most of the time in depth. That is great. That is a beautiful graphic to allude to. But when we talked about making things, in particular the stadium, ADA compliant. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about buildings. That includes HVAC, roofing, plumbing, and then operating costs. So when you have a new building, this is common knowledge to those who are, buy homes or are in the business and they have investments. You kind of plan about the 10-year mark that you're going to have maintenance on everything. Well, according to my superintendent friend, he said, if the bond is delayed currently in this modern era, the estimated cost annually increases from $12 to $17 million each year for projects like this. This is just the prop to invest into the schools, the buildings, the upkeep, the maintenance, renovation, reconstruction, additions. It's the same for stadiums too, and athletic facilities. So you think about that. Why pay more now instead of putting it off? And then you're circling back, and we're having this discussion again and saying, you know what? I wish I would have voted yes, because now it's more money out of pocket. And this is me information gathering. It's not an opinion. It's just rough, hard facts. It's sad. Everything costs a lot of money now.
Well, one of the things that Coach brought up when we met last week was, people say, well, we shouldn't be spending money on the stadium. We shouldn't be spending money on the school. We should be giving teachers raises. And Coach, I'll let you explain that, because you did you do a much better job in terms of how not spending this money is going to make it harder.
Well, I mean, the piece about school finances is there's two sides. There's the M&O and there's the INS. And the INS side is where you pay off your debts and things of that nature. But the M&O side is maintenance operations, where all the maintenance of your facilities and the operational piece of it, the budgets for the different programs, as well as your teachers' pay, all comes out of the same side of M&O. Well, the only way to build or improve or remodel or reconstruct in the school finance or the school business world is through bonds. The state doesn't provide any funds for that. Your M&O budget, a lot of that comes from your ADA, your average daily attendance, and it's set by the state how much you get for each one of those students who show up on a daily basis. Your ADA is based on your average daily attendance, not how many kids are enrolled, but how many kids attend on a daily basis. So our attendance affects our income from the state on that piece of it. But the fact is that regardless of whether 2 kids or 2,000 kids show up, the lights are still going to be on. The teachers are still going to be there, have to be paid. The air conditioning is going to be on. All those things are still going to have to function on a daily basis, whether we have 85% of the kids show up or 95% of the kids. But the amount of money that the state gives you to pay for that varies based on that attendance rate. But more importantly, we can't do the repairs without it coming out of the M&O side unless you pass a bond. If you pass a bond, now you can use that money to repair things, to improve and remodel things, which would then free up some of the M&O monies to be added to your teacher's pay scale or your teacher's pay and allow you to give raises through that side of the budget. Without bonds, then as our buildings are getting older and older and older, and repairs need to happen on a yearly basis, monthly basis, weekly basis, we have to use a larger portion of the M&O budget for those maintenance repairs, which again takes either money out of your athletic budget, your fine arts budget, your math budget, your science budget, because the pot is only what it is without any additional monies added through bonds that would take away from some of the maintenance operations that you have to take care of. And so, when people talk about giving teachers raises, I think that's the idea or the goal for every administrator of any district across the state. They want to take care of the people who make the district what it is, which is a lot of the teachers and the admin staff and things of that nature, and the janitors and the cafeteria workers. And I mean, it's all of us contribute to the educational process of our kids. The only way we can pay them is to free up money within that M&O budget to give raises. And so, the bond is an opportunity to move some of those costs to bond monies that there is no other way to pay for it. It's either through bond or it's through M&O. And so, a byproduct of passing the bond does free up potentially some money on that side of the budget, which would allow you to give staff raises. And so I think that's one piece of it that it answers the desires of some of the community that wants to take care of the teachers and the people who, are interacting daily with the students. That is one way to do it. And so, that's part of this reason for the bond. We have things that have to be done to these buildings that are aging, that there's only so much money in there.
John just posted a question here, or a statement in the comments that said property taxes are going up by more than $200 a year if this passes. John, that's not exactly true. I did some research before we got on here. If you own a $150,000 house, you're going to see a $69 annual increase, or $5.75 a month. A $250,000 home you're going to see $115 annually, with that's $9.66 a month, and a $400,000 home would be $184 annually, or $15.35 monthly. And if you're 65 or older, you're going to be exempt from a property tax increase. Although it's fair to say that there will be some in tax increases and some things that they're going to hit a little bit that everybody's going to feel. But it's simply not true that it's going to be $200 a year. Anyway,
John's. I mean, I respect that. We all pay taxes, and it's a concern.
Sure.
And I know there are people also saying, "How does this affect me?" Or I don't have kids, and John's, that's a valid point, valid statement. But let's just say it is 200. You divide that by 300 or monthly. You're thinking about what you purchase monthly, and this is just not to justify me opposing that or any of that. It's just thinking about, okay, let's say it is 200. You purchase what I mentioned. People go to Starbucks, or what's the coffee shop in downtown Lufkin? Standpipe. That's 2 of those coffees right there pays for your monthly right there. And that is not a slight against Standpipe. They have a wonderful business, great taste.
Yes, they do, and it's delicious.
Twice a year when I roll into town, I go to the Standpipe. But I guess what we're looking at, and it's the same here, every city. I just want everybody to know that be thankful you're not paying the taxes that we do here in Travis County and Austin, Texas, because I can see it. I've lived in all these communities. And Coach Abseck, you've been in many communities. It's a concern everywhere. You've probably had this conversation everywhere you've been, and you've learned a lot from it because you see both sides. But
I do, as a taxpayer. I mean, I'm in the same boat.
Right.
Both of my children are in college or out of college, and I'll never have a student of my own who attends school in Lufkin, but I pay Lufkin taxes. I pay Angelina college taxes. I pay for fire protection, police protection. I don't want to use either one of them either. But at the same time, I mean, I have to look at from my standpoint as a taxpayer, I want my money to be used for something good. I
100.
want to know that I'm taking care of providing the opportunities and the resources for kids to be successful. I think that was the direction we were kind of headed when we were talking about the CTE programs or the FFA, the Ag Barn and
Yeah.
those things. Again, not everybody's going to be an athlete, just like not everybody's going to be in fine arts, but we are trying to provide an opportunity for a successful future for everybody who walks through the doors at Lufkin High School. And so to do that, we're trying to meet their need, or what gets them excited in the morning to get up and go to school. And it may be welding, it may be agriculture, it may be band, it may be athletics. The math, the science, the English, and all that. That's obviously the foundational piece. But we're trying to look at how do we help this kid be successful moving into his next part of his life or her life, and giving them the tools to go out and compete in the real world for those jobs and those opportunities. And I said it when we talked last week. One of the things that schools across the state did when the last time that the big budget crunches came was they cut all of those programs because of the expense, and we took away the incentive or the opportunity for kids to really chase their dreams, because every kid has a dream, and they're all over the place within the academic world. And so, this is our way of saying, you know what, you don't have to go to college to be successful in life. We need plumbers, and we need welders, and we need electricians, and we need HVAC guys, especially in the summer. There are things that kids really dig, that really brings the light out in them, that aren't necessarily your college preparatory things or your athletics or your fine arts, that now we are opening up more and more doors for those kids to walk out of here with a certificate that allows them to compete for that spot to work alongside that electrician, so they can learn that and become a master electrician. And I think that's what our job is. That's what our purpose is to prepare all kids with an opportunity. Well, part of it is, within this bond, because right now we're limited on what certificates we can provide because of the material, the equipment, and the technology we have. And we're also limited by space. And so, there's kids that want to get into programs that can't get in because we're out of room. So we're working at trying to help all those things.
Greg, I want to add to that. What I've noticed, and I think everyone who's watching this as well, if you think, it doesn't matter what size of community you live in, but our society, and it was when that happened, when Coach Abseck mentioned that when the state cut funding for things like CTE, back in our days, we called it SHOP.
Mm-hmm.
CTE, career and technical training for students. So we are in a society now that's actually smarter in many ways, meaning, listen, I'm a huge advocate for education. Expand your education as far as you can to maximize one's earning potential. Well, we got to think outside the box now. Not really, but be an alignment. The three of us and many people were trained at our generation to think, go get your master's, go get your PhD, go to college. Well, our society now, our kids have learned that, you know what, to your point, I really don't want to go to college, and nor do I with the expense that colleges have now. I can get a lot of high schools offer this, and my community has a demand for plumbers, HVAC, electricians, even computer science. And you can get the education through these programs where you are entering the workforce. Either you want to stay in Lufkin or in Angelina County, you can make more in some of those fields immediately than you would as a college graduate in particular fields. Or
while you carry 150,000 in debt.
Right. And that's my whole problem. The debt to income ratio is the big hurdle why people are saying no to college, which I'm not encouraging.
No,
don't say no to college, but the younger people are smarter because they see that, no, I don't want to carry that debt. I can get enough training in these CTE programs if funded properly and leave high school with these certificates, a diploma, and a job.
And another thing, especially with the Ag Barn, when you're talking about FFA and some of those things, there's scholarships available. And I would dare say there's probably more academic scholarships handed out every year than athletic scholarships. And so, the kids that are doing the robotics, the kids that are doing the FFA, if you don't want that debt and you still want to go the college route, the 4-year route, then, there's some opportunities to get scholarships as well, as if that program is funded well and it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, to your athletic piece, and I know Coach Abseck's going to probably love this play off of this. I've seen Coach Abseck. He's a father. Everyone who's a coach, and I'm just speaking to him because I know him very well, a father not only to his own children, but his athletes. They play as a role as a mentor, a disciplinarian, a coach, and an administrator, his role. So I want to point out some statistics. And I know there's multiple studies out there. And this is playing to those who don't understand. And I get it. It's hard to visualize it. Why do we need a stadium? That thing looks beautiful. Oh, the old Abe looks great. It's historic. It's special to me too. But we've evolved. Life moves on. You've got to have this. And here's why. There's a study that I saw, and I didn't believe it at first. It says studies have shown that student athletes in high school who are playing in modern and well-funded facilities and athletic programs have a 98.5% graduation rate.
Wow.
Then the other one is the one that means a lot to me, the at-risk kids, the saving lives piece. Athletics and facilities do save lives. They change the trajectory. These same type of facilities and the funding of the programs we're talking about, for the non-athletes, the dropout rate was 35%. For the non-athletes, that dropout rate moves up almost 20% to 52% dropout rate if you don't have these programs and facilities funded or in modern type of facilities or environments.
And I would add that would be that those statistics could be extrapolated across all your different areas.
Yes.
I mean, you saw one specific to athletics, and I would agree, but the studies show that kids that are engaged and involved in different things besides just the typical, math, science, English, the core curriculum, kids that are involved are tremendously more successful. They're present at school. They are engaged in their educational process. All those things that we're talking about doing in Proposition A and B, they engage our kids. And that is what is important. I can't teach what's not there. I can't work with a student that doesn't show up on a daily basis. And if we don't provide them the outlet that really, motivates them or that gets them excited about life, then we lose them at times, and obviously, you're always shooting for zero dropout, zero, kids that are disengaged. And that's our goal as an educator. And that's probably, never attainable, but that's what you'd like to think, that we're trying to provide opportunities for kids to be engaged and involved that will bring them to school on a daily basis because they see something that's going to benefit them moving forward in their life. And, it's, I'm a kid advocate because I want to see kids have an opportunity for success. And that's my biggest driver for what we're looking at is just providing them the tools to be successful. It's not any different than the kids that are wanting to go to college. You know, the whole growth of concurrent classes now is huge because they get a reduced, cost of getting these classes that give them college credit. So, my daughter last year or this year as a freshman in college, she was only a freshman for a semester, and then she's a sophomore because she had so many hours coming over from high school. So not only did it save me money, it saved her time. And, she benefited from the fact that she'd already got that process started, knowing that she had to go to college to become a nurse. That's what she wants to do. There's things that we want to do in life that college is a necessity. Right. And then there's things that it's not. And so if it's not a necessity for, what you want to do moving forward in your life, well, let's provide that opportunity for them too.
Agreed.
I'm a small town kid. I was in FFA when I was in high school. I was the Green Hand president. As a freshman, I was the Sentinel. I went to the national convention. I showed a steer one year, and then I did a commercial steer. So I was involved in those areas too. Well, if you're in Lufkin ISD right now, you don't have a place to have your animal. Unless you have property that allows you to have animals. Well, there's a significant portion of our city that you can't have animals in your yard. So we're eliminating some of those things for our kids because we don't provide them a space for it, And so, when you say, why is the ag barn necessary? Well, I mean, it's part of it. If you want to be able to be fully engaged in that program, part of it is providing them a place where they can care for their animals, where they can train their animals, and so again, like I said, this bond is huge. A and B both are huge for our kids of our school and meeting a huge chunk of our school population.
One thing I saw when I toured the school back last month, I think it was we went through and we the robotics team, they were all there. They were getting prepared for competition. Some other kids that were doing some other things that, but this was 6-7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And these kids are at school.
They done at 4 for everybody.
Right. And they're not only there, they were having a good time. They were smiling, they were laughing, they were engaged in what they were doing. And I couldn't help but think,
to be there.
You know what? At 7 o'clock on a school night, especially if you're talking about, later in the week, I'm not sure that the things I was doing was nearly as wholesome as what those kids are doing. And I think even today, there's more out there for them to get into. If you can keep them at school at 7 o'clock at night when they're engaged in an FFA program, in a robotics program, into whatever they're doing there, whether it be athletics or academics, I mean, that's a huge part of keeping them where they shouldn't be and away from the things that they shouldn't be doing as well. And I think to have those programs, that's a huge part of making sure that happens.
Hey, in addition to John's comment, Miss Felina Spradley, got to say hello to her. She jumped in and made a comment. A longtime friend back in the days, in my Lufkin days. I appreciate everyone watching this. And you, Greg, you guys on that 936 platform, I know it's fairly new, but you guys are absolutely crushing it. And it's I think it's a great idea that's only going to flourish and grow. Something I thought about because I think across the country, public schools, people are concerned about it. Okay, what are we doing to make schools safer? So I did a little research on this because I really wasn't sure because I'm sure that crosses the mind. If I'm paying this amount of money, $150 to $250 more a year to support both of these props, what are you doing to keep my kids safe? So this bond will remove portable classrooms. I learned, and I don't remember portables on any of the Lufkin ISD campuses when I was there. I've heard that number. There's a significant amount of portables now.
About 30.
30. That's a good amount. There will be upgraded surveillance cameras on these campuses, including the high school, alert system, access card readers, which blows my mind because I'm very open. I know things aren't what they were when we were growing up, but access card readers are essential for a modern day school. And then something that I see here across on the other side of the hill from me, one of the junior highs, a vestibule where people enter before they gain access. So those are part of the bond, that those will be constructed. And I know it's creepy because you're going to wait in a little bubble before you gain access to school. But nowadays, it's an essential. Can either of you, as parents, drive it home why these are necessary?
Well, the vestibule keeps both the students and the workers at the front of the building safe,
Right.
till we have the opportunity to check those visitors in, get their required credentials, and so on. And so it keeps a separation between, someone having free access to just walk into a building,
Right.
and those who get checked out first, and you get to see who's coming and going. There's also fencing involved in that, at different campuses to secure different areas of the campus through fencing. The other piece of it is the school buses. Our fleet is aging, but two, the majority of the buses that we have currently don't have seatbelts, which, I rode the bus when I was for 14 years when I was growing up. And, you never heard of seatbelts. My mom's hand was the seatbelt in the car, for a long time. But now it's going to be required in 2029. And so it's going to involve either retrofitting our current fleet of aging vehicles, or buying new buses that come with it that obviously are now in the shape to run for many, many years. So there's a lot of those pieces, the portables, we're trying to transition away from having any reliance on those. And so that's a part of this as well.
I talked with Dr. Hockenberry, and he brought up the school buses, and whether you talked about the classrooms that are outside the buildings that are outside that are being used as classrooms. The other thing that we saw and that he talked a lot about is the shape those things are in. Those things are far beyond the amount of time they were expected to be used. And so that they're a problem. It's more into, if we don't fix it, or if we don't replace it, we're going to have to fix it. And, what we started out talking about, if this doesn't pass, what happens then? Then you were talking about your M&O budgets. That's going to have to be, and your other budgets are going to have to be used to handle stuff like putting seatbelts in buses and fixing the roofs and, fixing the air conditioners, the things that this bond could take care of. So, I think that's a good point.
I think it's important, because people say, as a homeowner, you're required to maintain your home, and you have to budget for it and prioritize and things of that nature. And they're not incorrect, but a lot of this stuff is unfunded mandates that come down from the state, or, they mandate that you fulfill these obligations, but they give you a portion of what it would cost. And so we're required by law to do these things, but we're not necessarily getting the funding to do all the things that we're being required to do. And so, we don't get to set the timeline. We don't get to, grandfather the old buses until they're no longer usable to say, well, when we buy new ones, we'll buy with seatbelts. No, the mandate says that by 2029, all school buses will have a seatbelt. So, we as a district, a lot of the leadership here is newer. And so, we're trying to catch things up as quickly as possible to, update and revitalize and to move us forward in a positive direction to be the district that we want to be.
And I think you said, Coach, use the example, and I hope I get the year right. You said if you had a house that was built in 1979 and you never did a thing to it, and here it is 2026, what's your house going to look like?
Yeah,
there's going to be some
in rough shape,
foundation issues. I think one of the undervalued things, and this is just, I've seen this happen in a lot of districts, and I think a lot of districts who were complacent, and I'm not saying Lufkin ISD is one of them, they didn't plan 20 to 30 years ahead. with bonds like this, and they're struggling right now, including the one I'm in right now, and playing catch up. So the one element that I think, and I don't know how much this element would appeal to people, but what I'm trying to get across here, and I'm fully convinced, it took me 2 weeks to reach this point, reading it, talking to people in Lufkin, talking to you guys. Everything on both of these bonds, you can say is essential because they are. But when you're looking at 20 to 30 years from now, everything on both of these bonds, once they're in place, constructed, everything that's on every line item that's addressed and checked off. People move to cities for the attractiveness of the public school education, safety, and dare I say it, but I will because I'm a full supporter of it, athletic success combined with academic success. Isn't that where we all want this district?
Sure.
People move here
and
invest money, business owners, and they imagine that the cycle coming back where Lufkin was, when I left, Lufkin was right up here. Everything, industry and education. But there are so many tremendous leaders in Lufkin. They see this vision. That's why these bonds are on the table for you guys. And as we're talking, early voting's ended. Now we got to wait until Saturday.
Except Saturday, May 2nd.
Move-ins. I still love this place, and I always will. And I said it. I'll say it 14 more times if I have to. I want to see people moving to Lufkin because I want my child to be a part of that system. And for CTE programs, athletics, get Coach Abseck a state championship, create a program back to what it was, because Lufkin is a jewel. And the beauty of it, there is diversity in Lufkin, and that's what makes it so beautiful. One of the
as somebody who's moved around a little bit, and I was in the military for a while, and I've been in the newspaper business for a while. My wife is a former teacher, and that's you hit on something. When we move, say if we're going to Longview, which we moved to Longview in 2016, the first thing she did.
They allowed you in Lufkin after you lived in Longview?
I just kept it really quiet. But one of the things we did is she did, especially because we had 2 kids in school at that time, and she looked at, okay, where are we going to go to school? Where are we going to move? Where are we going to live? I know my job is in Longview, but let's look around. We ended up in Hallsville because it offered us the best opportunity for our kids. Athletics weren't as good as they are now then, but still it was the school as a whole. We went and toured the facility. We did those things. And I think a lot of parents do that. And if they walk through, I got to say, when I went through Leadership Lufkin with the Chamber of Commerce last year, we toured the school. It was a very different tour than we got coached when we went through there last month. And, we kind of saw the good stuff when we were going through there with the Chamber. But when we came out, we saw the stuff that was really bad. We saw the roof, the ceiling problems, and the carpet problems, and all the things that we're talking about here. Had we seen those things, and maybe taking a look at another school, well, maybe we don't go to Lufkin. So I think that's an important thing, is if you're going to get people to move here and to live here in Lufkin, and a lot of people moving here have got kids, and that's an important part. What is the school like? What are the academics like? What are the athletics like? A lot of people have athletes. We grew up with several athletes, and so that was another thing. What's the athletic programs like? What are the facilities like? And if you don't have those things, you could have a kid going to Central Heights. You could have a kid going to Hudson. You could have a kid. There's plenty of places to go around here, and you don't have to go to Lufkin ISD to work in Lufkin. So I think that's a good point.
I don't think you could look across the state of Texas and see a fast growth district that hasn't shown the willingness and the purpose of providing top quality educational facilities and programs. I mean, when I moved to Leander to coach at Cedar Park, there was 3 high schools. When I left, there were 6. The population went from 48,000 to 98,000 in those 16 years. the district I just came from is one of the fastest growing districts in Houston area because, again, the school district is a priority. They provide unbelievable facilities. They have unbelievable programming. And so people are attracted to that. I mean, there's nothing more important as a person, as a parent, than your kids.
Amen.
And you want to give them the best opportunity for success in whatever it is that they choose to do possible. And so, you can see the example over and over all over the place. The Austin area became a tech, magnet because the educational processes of all the suburbs and the city provided the workers, provided the people that would work in those industries. They're being prepared right under their nose, through the school districts around Austin. They're not going to be hunting and searching for people who can do those jobs because they're right there being prepared at each one of those school districts, and so, when we talk about wanting more industry coming to our city, which would be a huge benefit, part of it is providing those incentives that say, hey, we can move this business here because they're going to provide the people who will work here through the educational process that they have in place. And you're not importing workers, you're hiring homegrowns, and so, it does, you can see it over and over all over the state. The education, the quality of the education in a city is an attraction to people who want to move and provide for their kids the best opportunities.
I'm not a big fan of promoting an agenda through fear, but if this doesn't pass, what does the world at Lufkin ISD, within Lufkin ISD, look like? And I mean, if say both A and B don't pass, what are you dealing with at that point?
I mean, our purpose and our goals aren't going to change. We've been in that building for 28 years. We've played in that stadium for 53 years. We're not going to change that. But the understanding is that there are things that are going to have to be fixed and repaired on a daily basis, and so you have to reprioritize budgets, and things of that nature. And that's just one of those things that as a school district, that's what you do. But with the mindset of it, you're going to keep it central around what's best for our kids and how can we still provide them the best that we can possibly do with the circumstances that we're dealt. So I don't think, what we do changes. It just, you're going to miss out on some things that you can't do because the resources just aren't available, and that's the simple truth of it is that pie can only be cut so many ways. And so if you have to use more over here, then you're going to have to cut it from somewhere else. And so that's kind of the things that you get into. I don't think that's using fear as a factor. I think that's just the realities of the economic world. The pie can only be cut so many ways. And so there are things that we're going to have to do that we'll have to find a way to make it happen because we don't have a choice. But at the same time, the central thought will always be what is best for our kids and how can we make it happen with what we have.
I got to add to that. Listen, Coach Abseck and I are going to have our own show at some point. I spoke to his talent agent last week. It's reasonable. I wouldn't be. Honestly, we talked last week. I looked at both of these proposals and talked to you guys and talked to other people I trust. I would not have committed to this if looking at everything, every line item cost for both proposals, if I didn't agree with all of them. Listen, my opinion doesn't matter at all. I just feel lucky to be talking about it, but I just from my experiences, and I'm a minimalist. I really am. But there's certain things right now going on in the state for public schools. And I do not want to see this happen to Lufkin. Everything that's on both of these proposals are needs and looking ahead for several decades ahead. And for those of you watching, just remember, you're as a parent, if you're a parent of a child in the Lufkin ISD system, these people who propose what's on there, they want the best for your child. And I've seen this in other school districts. This is not unique. And everybody's trying to cut dollars in their budgets. Everybody, including yours truly, as costs go up. Everything on these propositions, they are trying to get everything needed 30 years from now to current at the lowest cost, but done in a quality way.
Right.
Quality, always.
Well, we just hit an hour that we've been talking about this. So, Coach Abseck, I want to give you a chance to give you the last word on why this should happen or why this shouldn't happen. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that last part, but just give you a chance to give your closing spiel here.
Well, the biggest deal is keep in mind what's important. We all have, things that we have to do in life that we don't want to, but then there's opportunities to do something that makes a huge difference in the people that are around us, and I find it very difficult to gripe about the youth when we don't prepare them to be the ones that we're going to count on in 15 or 20 years to take care of us, and to take care of our community. And so really the biggest deal for me is, I know how I voted. And I think the thing I want people to understand is I voted for what's best for the kids of Lufkin now, next year, and 5 years from now, because they're all going to be impacted by it.
Shawn, any closing thoughts?
I think I've said enough that I feel like, because I'm passionate about it, and when it comes to kids. And when I was there in Lufkin, every socioeconomic background of people and kids meant the world to me. And I saw what was lacking in some areas, but at the time, it was Lufkin High School and the resource available are why majority of those, we have more success stories come out of Lufkin. I want this next generation, and I want that community to be proud again, and to have people moving into Lufkin and that education be top notch. And right now, it's unfortunate that you have two proposals like this, but they are essential. Proposition, I have to correct myself over and over. But this, I'm just like, Coach, if anything is going to determine or make my decision, when you think of children and our next generation of leaders, I'm all for yes. So I would, if I can influence anybody, at least one person, Saturday, vote yes to both. Let's make Lufkin, let's help it reach its potential, because I've seen it when it's great.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I want to be sure and thank you, both of y'all, both these gentlemen, Coach Abseck and Shawn. They have day jobs, and they've taken more than an hour of their time, because we had some time setting this up. And so, guys, I appreciate it so much with you being here and speaking with us. I want to thank the Lufkin Angelina County Chamber of Commerce for making this possible, for being the sponsor, and thank the listeners who showed up and are interested and learning about what we're doing here and what's going on with this bond issue. Again, final vote is early voting ended today. We got to vote on the elections on Saturday, May the 2nd. So get out there, give us a vote. And guys, I appreciate it so much. And anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
I appreciate you having us on and getting into the details of the bond, because I think that's the biggest thing is, understand what you're voting for and why, but also how it impacts you, but getting into the nuts and bolts of how it benefits people.
Thank you, Coach.
Last thing, Greg, it's just an investment in the future. That's all this is. It's plain and simple. And a year from now, if you say yes, you're going to say, you know what? If I'm wrong, I owe you a coffee somewhere. A year from now, you're going to say, this was well worth it. And in 5 years from now, you'll definitely see the return on your investment. It's a minimal investment. ROI, remember that.
There you go. Well, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Lufkin Angelina County Chamber of Commerce, thank you for making this possible, guys. I couldn't ask for a better conversation here. Thanks so much, and we will be talking to you soon.
See you guys.
See you. Bye-bye.